Everyone's always thinking about what's next and what should I do? Well, look no further. Do what everyone else is doing at your own peril. You'll be one of a million. But how about being one in a million instead? Forget predictions. Let's talk about what's going on in our industry and what I'm planning to do about it this year. If you're interested, you can follow along or join me. That's this week on the Badass Agile podcast. Greetings, team. Welcome to the Badass Agile podcast. I'm your host, Chris Williams. Hey, welcome back, old friend. Thank you for tuning in and Happy New Year. Happy 2023. Well, I always like to start off the year by talking about what I see coming, the trends that I see shaping, the gathering storm, and then talk about what I think I'm going to do about it, or what I think we collectively as an industry should do about it. So I'm going to do the same this year. It's going to be an interesting year, that's for sure. But before we dig into it, let's take a moment to remember why we're here. To create an elite tribe of leaders who truly serve their clients and communities by doing what matters and what works, relentlessly chasing value and excellence like a badass. There's so many resources out there about what you need to do to be agile, but we're focused on who you need to become in order to lead teams. So let's hammer down those fundamentals to create a truly unique and powerful force in this industry. Now remember, if this helps you, tell your friends about the show. You can also join us in one of the various communities where you can catch me live talking about whatever I'm working on, whatever you're working on. Grab the links from the show notes below. And hey, we got another cohort of the Forge starting soon. So if you haven't been through the course already, you're not going to want to miss this one. We have some real exciting things happening here. And don't forget to sign up for the Badass Agile Entrepreneur podcast as well. So what's going on in 2023? Do you get the feeling that we've kind of been dumped out of this 2-year period where we're all forced to make choices about our own health or well-being, both physically and mentally, and now all of a sudden we're just picking up the pieces? Some people want to go back to the way things were, and some people believe that we can never go back. Either way, we're getting more and more polarized. Have you noticed that? Politically, ideologically, we're polarized. And you would think, how does this bleed over into Agile? And you might be surprised to find that it does in a big way. Go scan your LinkedIn feed. Not so much Instagram or TikTok, but definitely on LinkedIn. You'll see more and more people contributing their 2 cents. Now, I believe this has everything to do with a prediction that we made a couple of years ago that the market was going to be saturated with newly minted Scrum Masters who were looking to break into the field. As the industry tries to support those efforts and to bring those people in, one of the things we're noticing is that people are getting a little bit antsy and a little bit territorial about the Scrum Master role. They're trying to say, how do you do it right versus do it wrong? They're asking questions like, who has the right to be a Scrum Master? Can you come in with no experience and actually be a Scrum Master? Well, opinions and mileage obviously vary. What I want you to focus on is not the fact that more Scrum Masters are coming into the field, because there's nothing you can do about it. You can't stop that, and trying to wish it away isn't going to do anything for you. What we have to do is figure out what we're going to do about all this polarization, because it's starting to get a little tense in the room, and that's not good for business. So anyway, you go looking down your LinkedIn feed and you'll see people starting to talk about their science-backed research about the right way to do a particular thing in Scrum or Agile. And then everyone else wants to jump on the bandwagon and chime in and say, well, not a bad point, but I would add this, or I wholly disagree. My science-backed research says this. What science-backed research? We're going to talk about this in an upcoming episode, but the truth of the matter is that Scrum has got a lot of simplicity baked into it. And remember, the point is not to be scrummy. The point is to be agile, but let's remember that an organization probably doesn't care all that much about either of those. They faintly know that agility is something that they should be doing, adopting, or spending money and time on. But at the end of the day, it's not what the organization measures itself on. It measures itself on something more like stakeholder value, which may translate into revenue, profitability, and so on. So all of this debate that's happening in the forums, it's interesting, but there's 2 big problems with it. Number one, it's almost always limited to technical Scrum, which, if you remember, I've been saying for a while now, that can't be our highest height. We got to set the bar higher. We got to think about how to take the principles that we've learned and use and apply them to other areas of endeavor. And it doesn't just have to be business either. It could be artistry. I'm fascinated with Agile in the arts. But if we're sitting in a corner arguing about the validity of using a white Kanban board versus a blue one, we are never going to get there. Things are not in good shape, my friends. We're at war online. As a community, we're supposed to be of one accord. We're supposed to be supporting each other, learning from each other, not bickering back and forth and digging our heels in, trying to make ourselves right and the other person so very wrong. So the first thing that we're going to have to work on in 2023 is healing the gap. Someone's got to get out there and say, okay, folks, arguing about this stuff doesn't make any of us better. It's great that you have your experiences. It's great that you have your opinions. It's great that you have your findings. But ultimately, we're trying to make sure that what we do in the team room makes the organization better. At what? At whatever they want to get better at. I've had the privilege this year to use Scrum entirely on non-technical concerns. Agile for entrepreneurship, elements of agility in Scrum, I've scraped up and molded together to help heal cultures, to help bring more organizational courage. These things have nothing to do with making a piece of software. And you know what? My clients are loving it. There's tremendous demand for it, so much so that people can't keep up. Come on, guys, we're supposed to be agile. We're supposed to be helping people get to market with the things that they need quicker. As we're sitting there bickering in the halls about whose retrospective technique is better, our clients are floundering, waiting for someone to help them. They're begging for someone to heal their pain. And we're not helping them because we're so busy focusing on being right. There is an increased need for true community building that doesn't center around framework and method perfection. It shocks me because built into the manifesto and all the rules of agility is that Agile is not supposed to be a silver bullet. And right in the manifesto, it says, we don't care about frameworks, processes, or tools. But what are we arguing about? Which is the better framework, process, or tools? Who's more righty-right than the other person? Which sequence of pushing buttons in some dialog box in Jira is better than someone else's sequence of pushing buttons? Come on, guys, we're supposed to be better than that. So who will go out there and build community for true agility? I've said this many times. Maybe we should stop calling it Agile. Maybe we should stop calling it Scrum. Let's call it FRUK instead. F-R-U-K. Sounds good, right? It's new. Why don't we do that so that all the Scrum purists stop their holy wars and don't point at what we're doing and saying, who said you're allowed to do that? Did Jeff Sutherland say you're allowed to do that? It doesn't matter. Who cares? I'm not here to please Jeff Sutherland or any other founder. We're here to take the miracle of this gift that we've been given and to take the learnings that hopefully we've been pulling out of it for the past 2 decades and a half and use them for the greater good, use them to make us better, more efficient, and faster. Anyway, enough of my soapboxing on that one, but we must get better at creating community. I don't care how you do it, whether you do it in LinkedIn, whether you do it someplace else. Let's get out there and figure how to use Agile to solve real problems in 2023. Now, I think business agility will continue to grow. I only expect big corporations to adopt this stuff so quickly. I don't expect them to go rogue, but I do expect at this point that they're sensing that it's safe to take Scrum outside the team room and bring it to other areas of the organization. I think it's important for companies that don't have IT departments and therefore maybe never get a chance to hear about Agile and Scrum to start using it. So small and medium businesses, could they be using this for their marketing efforts? Could they be using it to test a new product line, to reach a new audience, to delve into a new revenue stream or revenue model? Now, why is it important that business agility continues to grow? Because for you guys who have been with me for the now almost 6 years we've been doing this show, holy smokes, eh? If you've been here from the beginning, you're probably a senior Scrum Master or a senior coach at this point. Maybe you lead an Agile organization and you see all of these new people, young people coming up, taking on the role, and good for them. This is awesome. This is the next wave of thinkers. But someone has to make sure that we're creating more opportunities as all of these bodies start to fill the pool. And most importantly, friends, it's the characteristic of the people who are coming into the workforce. They're not interested, nor should they be, in following a process, checking all the boxes that makes them a good boy or good girl in the eyes of the Scrum Guide or any of these other quote-unquote officials or experts. Take the ideas and the philosophies and the joy of doing the most important thing first, focusing on the 80-20, the MVP, what can I put out that tests or proves a concept? The idea of rejecting excessive planning and documentation and overthinking and hesitation and planning and preparation and trying to get things perfect before we ship item number one. Let's get rid of that. I think that's what business agility can teach us. The closer we are to the aim and the heart and the core of the business, the more we're going to be forced to test our expertise, to test our grit, to test our actual agility. It's time for us to rise up. Let's get out of the technical team room. Haven't we perfected this by now? I think taking Agile out of the big organizations, what I call big bank Agile, is where the real freedom is. You can write your own destiny. You can design your own career. You can help the people that you want to help do the things that you're passionate about helping people do. It's got to happen this year, guys. Who among us is going out there on Main Street or in the downtown areas and knocking on the doors of all these different business owners and saying, hey, have you heard about Scrum? Have you heard about a better way to execute on your highest priority goals? How's your business? How's your revenue? How's your foot traffic? What's your marketing spend like? What kind of return are you getting on it? I think I can help you. Man, that's freedom. And you can do it with the skills that you already have. You just got to get your nose out of Miro and Jira and all these other nonsense frameworks and methods and so on. All right, now if you're staying within large organizations, it should be obvious by now. I don't know how many of these surveys and state of Agile reports have got to come out where you hear the same thing over and over again. The problem's not agility. And the problem is certainly that Agile and Scrum are not precise enough. We don't need more process. We've discussed this already. What we need is more support, buy-in, and collaboration with the leadership and the non-technical parts of the organization, right? It's over and over we keep hearing the same thing. Well, who do you think's got to sell it to them? You think they're just going to sit there and finally figure out what Agile means and sell it to one another? No, the people who are expert in doing Agile, in raising up a team and making them effective and making them powerful and making them impactful, they've got to go to the business and say, hey, what do you want Agile for? It's great that you're investing in it. It's great that you're talking about it. But what do you think it's going to do for you? Because there might be a miscommunication here. We need to talk about how Agile, Scrum, Kanban, Lean, all those different things can actually help you. And it starts with you telling me, what do you need this year? What's your biggest concern? What's not working for you? What's not happening for you? And then when they tell you, you got to help them go chase it. But if we're not making them understand why their contribution, why their support, why their full investment is important, then nothing's going to change. We're going to do the State of Agile report next year. You're going to have the exact same percentage failure rate, and we're going to blame it on the exact same factors. Or worse, by the way, I'd like to point out that the State of Agile report is basically one big giant dashboard. But I digress. We're going to do what every dashboard does next year, and we're going to start lowering the bar. What used to pass for red is suddenly going to become green, but there will be no material change underneath. So we need to get better as Agilists at communicating this change and getting the buy-in happening. I also think we need to be honest and stop imagining that Agile is good at eliminating complexity. It's just not. Anytime an organization insists that a project be all-encompassing, that it span multiple business processes and multiple business units and multiple stakeholders and multiple initiatives and systems, we're going to have the exact same problem we had in Waterfall. A whole bunch of people working on different things are not very good at coming together and working on the same thing without wasting a lot of time, energy, and resources. It's just one of those immutable laws of large organizations. Now, if, like me, you're passionate about eliminating that complexity and building things anew from the ground up, this is an interesting challenge. But if you're not, I think that we need to find the areas of the organization where there are shorter scale projects, things that are not trying to boil the ocean, things that we can do a 3-month run on and focus with laser intensity to completion. You know, anytime you're working on a 3-year initiative, the people who started with you aren't on the project anymore by the time it's done. That lack of continuity, not to mention the massive complexity, the multiple decision makers, and all that other goober, makes it ridiculously hard and painful for any kind of orchestration, synchronization, or synchronicity to ever happen. It's time to use Agile where it shines, on high-value tactical initiatives that respond to big, bubbly, wavy, explosive changes in the marketplace. Now, one of the things I called a couple of years ago is the fact that developer may not be a full-time job as we know it today, a couple of years from now. Now, if you're sitting here listening to this today, you already know about things like ChatGPT and all the various types of AI that can do anything from marketing to coaching. If you've been living in a hole for the past 3 months, let me share with you that ChatGPT itself can not only generate code based on human directions, but can also fix and replace buggy code. What do you think is going to happen with self-documentation? What do you think is going to happen with testing? What do you think is going to happen with optimization? Pretty soon, those functions will be largely automatable, and the prize goes to people who know how to run and feed the automation engine so that it does that job well. I don't know what's going on, but in the past couple of months, it's like all of a sudden, the future is here. Well, are you ready for it? Do you know how to use these tools? And by the way, if the developer and tester roles start to recede or fade away, what's that mean for your Agile? What does that mean for your technical Scrum? What does that mean for the Scrum Master role? Could that be automated too? Before you say, no way, man, think about it. Now, if that sounds like doom and gloom to you, don't panic. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying that to prepare you. I want you to grab the reins and figure out what this means for the future of what we do. What's coming in the next 6 months or year, and how can you be at the front line of that change? This maybe is one of the most important forces that we're looking at in 2023. So let's summarize. Between automation, artificial intelligence, and the deep polarization of people in our industry, I think a big change is coming, and I think we need to be ready for that future. People who can unify forces, communicate better with business, focus on the small and nimble efforts that create powerful responses to a very rapidly changing marketplace, moving away from the technical concerns and more towards the business, stakeholder, and fundamental concerns of the domain itself, whether that's business, whether that's the arts, or whether that's something else. I think you're going to see more movement in that direction this year. So be bold. You want to write your own resume and paycheck? Then get after this stuff. Start thinking about it. Start making this your side hustle. Make your voice heard. Get out there and start speaking. Communicate. Reach out to me. Train up. Get the skills that you need to meet the upcoming challenge. My friends, I hope this one informed and inspired you. As always, you can find me on Instagram at badassagile, at badassagile.com. If you're interested in hearing more about The Forge or The Forge Professional, my coaching offerings, or my online communities, please reach out to me. Find out more in the links below. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A healthy and happy 2023 to you, my friend. I'm going to see you next time. And until then, stay badass.